On a warm August evening, 16 gunshots shattered the quiet night in a lavish Beverly Hills neighborhood.
Beverly Hills emergency?
Yes, police.
What's the problem?
Someone killed my parents.
Pardon me?
Someone killed my parents.
What? Who? Are they still there?
Yes.
Inside the walls of a nearby mansion, two brothers had just committed what could possibly be one of their final acts as free men together, bonding them not only by blood, but infamy. Growing up, the brothers had always been inseparable. They laughed together, played together, sharing secrets only brothers could. From the outside, their lives looked picture perfect. They attended elite schools, surrounded by privilege and opportunity on every corner. Their parents were the image of the American dream.
José Menendez is chairman of the board, president, and chief executive officer of Live Entertainment.
Self-made and relentless, having built their fortune from nothing, and they expected their sons to carry their legacy forward. But behind the mansion walls and manicured lawns, the dream had turned into a nightmare.
They were going to be disinherited. They decided they were going to do something about it.
In an act that would captivate the nation.
A story that evokes the irresistible themes of a Hollywood plot.
The brothers had shot and killed their parents inside their own home.
You pretended that you hadn't done it, went off on a spending spree, you bought Rolexes, you bought cars.
Labeled as nothing more than cold-blooded killers.
Guilty on all counts with special circumstances.
Lyle and Erik Menendez were sentenced to life in prison. Yet decades later, their story still resonates with the world, and what once seemed like an open and shut case is now being re-examined.
The Menendez file, which is now a little thicker because we did deeper research, that's all on my desk.
From the beginning, the brothers claimed they were motivated by fear, exposing their family's mansion as not a palace, but a prison filled with trauma and abuse.
It was terrifying and it was confusing. You just never knew what was going to happen.
There was certainly no indication of any kind that there was ever any abuse. I think the motive was strictly money.
At the time, few believed them.
And do you really think that child abuse justifies murder?
We were not saying that they deserve to die. We're saying if you terrify people, they may act out of terror.
But today, the question echoes louder than ever. Were Lyle and Erik Menendez truly monsters?
What they did to my sister, they should have gotten the death penalty.
Or broken sons pushed past their limits?
They've been behind bars many, many years. I would love to see them free.
Welcome to the Vacant Mind. Today, we're diving into the case of Lyle and Erik Menendez, two brothers who spent over 3 decades in prison for killing their parents, José and Kitty. We'll go over the timeline leading up to the crime, the investigation that unfolded in the aftermath, and talk about the brothers' ongoing fight for freedom. But first, let's learn more about the family's background. José Enrique Menendez was born May 6, 1944, in Havana, Cuba. He came from a family of athletes. His father was José Francisco, a well-known soccer player, and his mother, Maria Carlotta, was a champion swimmer. At the age of 16, José was sent to live with his relatives in the United States as Castro's revolution unfolded back home.
This was the scene of turmoil in the capital, Havana, as the climax of revolution was reached.
His parents stayed behind to protect the last of their properties, which hadn't been seized by Castro yet. In high school, José stood out as an athlete. José's accomplishments in athletics would earn him a swim scholarship to Southern Illinois University. It was there that he met his future wife, Mary Louise Anderson, who went by Kitty, in 1962. Kitty was born in 1941 in Oak Lawn, Illinois, to Charles and May Anderson. Friends of Kitty described her as a quiet rebel and a bit mysterious, keeping her past a secret. Her father was reportedly abusive, leading to her parents' divorce when Kitty was still young.
Kitty was my sister, my younger sister. She was stunningly beautiful, and I mean beautiful on the outside and even more so on the inside.
Growing up, Kitty was known for her beauty, which would help her win the title of Miss Oaklawn in a local beauty pageant in 1972. During her senior year at Southern Illinois University, she met José in one of her classes, and the pair began dating soon after. Around this time, José transferred to Queens College in New York to pursue business, but he wasn't going to leave Illinois without Kitty. At 19, he proposed to her, despite his father's worries about the couple's youth. "If I was old enough to be on my own at 16, I'm old enough to be married at 19, José wrote in a letter to his dad. They got married in 1963, with Kitty making the move to New York with José. Once in New York, José started washing dishes at the 21 Club, while Kitty worked as a teacher. On January 10, 1968, the couple welcomed their first son, Joseph Lyle, in a hospital in New York. Kitty quit her teaching job so she could stay at home and take care of Lyle. Soon after, the family moved to New Jersey, where the couple welcomed their second son, Eric Galen.
Eric? Hello, everyone out there in TV land.
On November 27, 1970. Growing up, the brothers attended Princeton Day School, an exclusive private campus where they had good grades and mostly kept to themselves. Eric was remembered as shy, with one former coach saying he seemed like a sad kid. A former classmate remembered Lyle as a prankster, laughing after he brought dog biscuits covered in chocolate to a school bake sale, passing them off as homemade sweet treats. From a young age, José began pushing the brothers to dominate in swimming, soccer, and tennis.
José used to brag about the fact that he would take the boys to the gym and make them strong.
Later making them pick just one sport to focus on.
Because I was 11 years old and he said I was becoming a man and it was time to choose a sport.
When the brothers picked tennis, José began to study the game, reading and watching everything he could about the sport. As his sons worked on their skills, they say José put them through intense training sessions, making them get up in the early morning hours to hit balls, out in freezing temperatures.
Dad was pretty aggressive. He wanted to see results. He wanted to see them doing very well when they were working with me.
But José's cousin, Henry Yanio, says it was just his way of being a good father.
He would call during the day, 2, 3, 4 times a day, a busy executive such as he was.
After finishing his accounting degree in 1967, José went on to climb the ranks at big companies like Hertz and RCA Records in the 1980s.
He was going right up the ladder without any hesitation.
He was everything that success was, that I was taught that success was. I thought that he was the most powerful and brilliant person I had ever met.
At RCA, he worked with big names like Duran Duran and Menudo, a Puerto Rican boy band. In 1986, the family moved to Calabasas, California, when José became CEO of International Video Entertainment, a video distribution company that brought films into homes through VHS tapes. The company, a subsidiary of Family Home Entertainment, founded by Noel Bloom in 1980, would later rebrand as Live Entertainment by the end of the decade.
José Menendez is chairman of the board, president, and chief executive officer of Live Entertainment, joining us here in Los Angeles.
We think 1989 will be a tremendous year.
Under its new name, the company began branching out into other areas of entertainment, buying up music stores across the East Coast, including a popular chain called Strawberries.
He was the guy that made things happen. He was like the Wonder Boy. It was like magic what he did, and the stock just skyrocketed.
He was an admirable person. He controlled every business negotiation he would encounter. He would manage to have the right words to ridicule and intimidate and humiliate and manipulate anyone that was present so he could control.
Within 2 years of José stepping into his new role, the family abruptly left Calabasas after Eric was caught breaking into homes in the area, stealing over $100,000 in cash and some jewels. It was believed that Lyle was also involved, but an underage Eric took the fall, since the consequences would be less severe. The judge sentenced Eric to community service and required him to undergo psychological counseling. Around this time, both brothers began seeing a therapist, Dr. Jerome Oziel. In 1988, José moved the family to Beverly Hills, into a house that was once rented by Elton John. Eric began his senior year of high school there the next year. During his time in school, Eric was an average student, but stood out on the tennis court, once even ranking as the 44th player in the top 100 in the US. In his free time, Eric hung out with his friend, Craig Signorelli, coming up with ideas for businesses and working together to write screenplays. After graduating high school, Lyle attended Princeton, where he played varsity tennis. During his time there, Lyle met his then girlfriend, Jamie Pissarick, and Glenn Stevens, who would quickly become a close friend. Within his first semester, Lyle began to struggle with his grades, leading him to be placed on probation. He was suspended for plagiarism after his first semester, but was allowed to return to the university after a year. After returning to campus, Lyle began sharing his dorm with his girlfriend's former roommate, Donovan Gaudreau.
He was my closest friend ever.
After realizing he was missing money one day, Glenn says Lyle kicked Donovan out of the dorm.
And soon thereafter, Lyle held up a leather wallet, told me that it was Donovan's and that he had kept it.
And was planning to get his missing money back, with the Wells Fargo bank card found inside of it. Over the summer, Lyle left campus, going home to stay with his parents in California, where he stayed in the guest house out back. On August 18th, 1989, a 21-year-old Lyle and an 18-year-old Erik bought two 12-gauge shotguns and birdshot ammunition at a Big 5 sporting goods store in San Diego. Prosecutors say Erik used a driver's license that had been taken from Lyle's former roommate, Donovan Gaudreau, to make the purchase, hoping authorities wouldn't trace the weapons back to him.
But on that date, Gaudreau punched a time clock, showing that he was at work in New York City.
They had considered handguns, but to avoid California's 15-day waiting period, they bought shotguns instead, which they could take home that same day. The brothers stopped by a gun range to test out their new purchases, but were turned away, since shotguns weren't allowed. Unsure if he had bought the right ammo, Lyle says he bought buckshot, which has stronger and heavier pellets than the birdshot, from a local gun store. On the afternoon of August 20th, Lyle called his friend, Perry Berman, asking him if he wanted to hang out later that night after he got done watching a movie with Erik.
And I told him that I had plans to go to the Taste of LA food festival at the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium, and I was going with a friend of mine, and that he was more than welcome to join us. We know with Erik, of course.
The friends agreed to meet up at Taste of LA around 9 p.m. when the movie wrapped up. Around 10 p.m., both armed, the brothers walked into the theater room in their home, where José and Kitty had been watching The Spy Who Loved Me, with the door closed. Both brothers opened fire, hitting José 6 times, including a fatal shot to the back of his head. Kitty was shot 9 times, and was still alive when the brothers ran out of ammo.
When I walked in the room, I was panicking, and I just fired every shot I had. I didn't stop to take a look at what I was doing after each shot. I just fired until there was nothing left.
Erik ran to his car to grab more ammo, handing it to Lyle, who reloaded and
shot my mom,
firing the 10th and final shot into her cheek.
It just happened so fast. Before I knew it, I was standing there and it was over.
The brothers quickly picked up the shells and changed their clothes, trying to get rid of any evidence linking them to the crime. Afterward, the brothers stayed at home, expecting that someone would have called the police after hearing the gunfire.
12 shots in the middle of Beverly Hills on a Sunday night, and no one calls the police. I'm sitting on the stairs afterwards thinking the police are going to be there in seconds.
I just figured this is Beverly Hills. This doesn't happen in Beverly Hills.
When no officers arrived, the brothers left the home to try and create an alibi for themselves, dumped their clothes and other evidence, and to bury the shotguns near Mulholland Drive. The brothers stopped by a local theater and bought tickets to Batman.
I guess it was 10:15, 10:30, or 11 o'clock showing, whatever showing it was.
But threw them away when they saw the time was stamped on them.
I obviously couldn't give those to the police.
Next, they visited the Taste of LA festival, where they realized that Perry had already left. Around 11 p.m., Lyle called Perry, explaining he and Erik had gotten lost on their way to the festival, but still wanted to meet up at a cheesecake factory in Beverly Hills.
He was very persistent that he wanted to get together that evening to, discuss his plans to go back to Princeton University in the fall and to talk about his tennis game.
After Perry agreed, prosecutors say Lyle called him back within minutes, asking to meet at the family's mansion instead, so they could grab a fake ID for an underage Erik, who wouldn't be able to drink at the restaurant without it. Perry told Lyle no, and that he would just wait for the brothers at the business, but he would never see them that night. After returning home, the brothers realized that the police had never shown up. Lyle would call 911 himself, crying to the dispatcher that someone had killed his parents. Erik's cries and screams could be heard in the background, as his brother made the call.
Beverly Hills emergency?
Yes, police.
What's the problem? What's the problem? What's the problem?
Someone killed my parents.
Pardon me?
Someone killed my parents.
What? Who? Are they still there?
Yes.
The people...
No.
Were they shot?
Hey, man,
were they shot?
Yes.
They were shot?
Yes.
What happened? Is the person still there?
What happened? We have units around. What happened? Who shot who? I don't hear anything. I just came home. You came home and found who shot? Mom and Dad.
You know if they're still in the house, the people that did the shooting.
Get away from them. Okay. Hey, let me talk to Erik. Who is the person that was shot? My mom and my dad. Your mom and dad? My mom and my dad. Okay, hold on a second. Okay, we're on our way over there with the ambulance. Okay, I gotta go. Okay. Hello, this is police department. Yes. Okay, I want you to come outside. Okay, just come out the front door and my brother.
When officers arrived, the brothers ran from the home, screaming and crying. One neighbor later told reporters that she saw Erik curled up in a ball, sobbing on the front lawn of the home.
Screaming and crying and just horrible, horrible sounds, truthfully.
I was hysterical. It was beginning to hit me what I had done when I went back to the house that night.
When officers went into the den, they found José's body on the couch and Kitty laying nearby on the floor.
There were no apparent signs of a forced entry. We're uncertain as to this time as to how whoever committed the crime actually got into the home.
At first, investigators believed that the brothers had nothing to do with it.
And you're not going to press them because their parents just got blown away.
So they didn't test their hands for gunpowder residue. The brothers told police they weren't home during the crime, but prosecutors say the brothers suggested that the crime could be business-related due to their father's seedy relationships.
Lyle Menendez told the police that his father had received threats from people and also discussed his own needs for a bodyguard because he was being followed.
In the days after the shootings, the brothers moved between hotels, and Lyle hired a bodyguard.
For approximately a week or so, we spent 24 hours a day with him.
Saying he was scared that whoever killed his parents could be coming for them next.
He said it was either the mob or the mafia.
Speculation swirled around the mafia's involvement with how brutal the killings were.
I've been in this business for over 33 years, and I've heard of very few murders that were more savage than this one was.
And the details behind some of the deals José's company had done in the past.
There were a lot of rumors and innuendos to the effect that the company might have been doing business with people in the mafia.
With Erik later naming Noel Bloom, founder of Family Home Entertainment, the company that would go on to become Live Entertainment, with José at the helm. Erik told police that his father had problems with Bloom after buying the company.
My dad had embarrassed him so bad.
In 1986, the California Department of Justice named Bloom in its annual organized crime report, writing that he was a former associate of a well-known crime family. José's sister, Marta Cano, told investigators that she was suspicious of another of her brother's business associates, Morris Levy, a music mogul with ties to the mafia and former owner of Strawberries, the chain of music stores bought by Live Entertainment.
Did you kill José Menendez?
No, I definitely did not. It's even funny.
Police found nothing linking the crime to Bloom or Levy, completely ruling out organized crime altogether.
This is not television. This is not movies. This is real life. The fact of the matter is, this is not an organized crime killing at all. And that was rejected very early on when the investigation took it in an entirely different direction.
Soon after the crime, José's will was uncovered by the family, leaving their brothers the entirety of his $14 million estate. With no other suspects in sight, police began to take note of how much money the brothers began to spend in the days after the crime. On August 24th, prosecutors say Lyle bought 3 Rolex watches and money clips.
I don't think that it's understandable. I mean, people react to a traumatic event like that in different ways.
Detectives say that Lyle was wearing one of the new watches during one of his early interviews with them, explaining that he had just bought it.
He also indicated that he had charged the Rolex watch on his father's credit card.
On August 25th, a memorial service was held for José in a screening room at the Hollywood headquarters of the Directors Guild of America. That same day, Lyle flew back to Princeton, where he stayed for a couple of days, reconnecting with his friend, Glenn Stevens. The following Monday, Lyle and Erik attended another memorial service held for José and Kitty in the chapel on campus at Princeton University. During the service, Lyle shared a letter that his father had written him, which read, "I believe that both you and Erik can make a difference. I believe that you will. I encourage you not to select the easy road. I encourage you to walk the road with honor, regardless of consequences, and to challenge yourself to excellence."
Lyle also made a statement that his father always said, "You can never fill my shoes." And he jokingly said, "Guess what? I'm wearing my father's shoes today."
After the service, Lyle talked to reporters about the crime, saying someone was trying to send a message, but no one in the family was able to decipher it. While in Princeton, Glenn says Lyle made a sudden trip back to Beverly Hills, later explaining that he had gone home to erase files named Will, Erik, and Lyle that were found on the family computer. He said Lyle was scared that the files were updated versions of José's will.
He said, "Well, my father wasn't very happy with me at the time, and since the will that was found gave me and my brother everything, I had nothing to lose by erasing this one. I'm not sure if I would have been in it."
After he was unable to open the files, Lyle hired a computer tech, later explaining that he wanted to see them for himself before his uncle Carlos, who had hired his own professional to come the next day. The computer tech would later confirm that Lyle had paid him to wipe the entire disk.
He said he felt he could erase it in a way that nobody would find out, so I told him to do that.
On September 8th, Jose's $650,000 life insurance policy was paid out evenly among the brothers. With the money, Erik hired a personal trainer for $60,000 to prepare for tennis tournaments overseas, and bought himself a new Jeep Wrangler. Lyle bought a Porsche and borrowed money from the family's estate to buy a buffalo wing restaurant called Chuck's Spring Street Cafe in Princeton, which he had visited during his time as a student.
Went on the spending spree and decided to go into business and wanted to start with his life right away and just put that behind him.
Detectives say they became more suspicious after seeing how lavishly the brothers had been living, dining at high-end restaurants, traveling to New York and the Caribbean, and sitting courtside at New York Knicks games. They left their Beverly Hills mansion, moving into condos next door to each other in Marina del Rey. Family members told investigators the brothers had always burned through money, making cash an unlikely motive.
Lyle would come in and instead of buying 1 or 2 shirts, he would buy 6.
But Kitty's brother, Ryan Anderson, says Lyle's spending had started to become a problem for his parents.
And they took his credit cards away to try to educate him. He was really upset. What he started to do was steal their credit cards and go out and buy what he wanted to buy anyway.
At this point, Erik's former classmate, Craig Signorelli, stepped forward, telling police about a 66-page screenplay he had written with Erik, which had seemed to foreshadow the deaths of José and Kitty.
A gloved hand is seen gripping the doorknob and turning it gently. Good evening, Mother. Good evening, Father. His voice is of attempted compassion, but the hatred overwhelms it. All light is extinguished, and the camera slides down the stairs as screams are heard behind.
The screenplay tells the story of a young man who kills his parents for his inheritance, calling it the perfect murder.
And it showed the Darwinistic tendencies of the child toward the parents. Remove them, and then I'm free and I can do what I want.
Craig also claimed that Erik had confessed to the killings to him.
Erik said he looked in and saw his parents sitting on the couch, and Lyle swung the door open and shot his father and looked at Erik and said, "Shoot, Mom," and Erik said he shot his mom as she was standing up and yelling.
Police asked Craig to wear a wire while having lunch with Erik one day, hoping to get his confession on tape. When questioned by Craig during the lunch, Erik denied any involvement in the killings. In late October, Erik called his therapist, Jerome Oziel, asking to set up an appointment, saying it was urgent.
I got to a point where I could no longer live. I felt that I was the worst person on earth. I couldn't live with myself anymore and I needed help. And so I went to him.
Oziel agreed to meet at his office the next afternoon, but would tell Judalon Smyth, who he was seeing outside of his marriage, that he felt like Erik was about to confess to the crime, asking her to come by and sit in the waiting room during the session. On Halloween, Erik met with Oziel at his office on Bedford Drive before they continued the conversation during a walk in a nearby park.
Erik came in and he was extremely agitated and extremely depressed, having some nightmares that were very vivid images of his parents being dead and having seen them dead.
It was during that conversation that Erik confessed that he had killed his parents with Lyle, telling Oziel, "We did it."
I asked him, you mean you killed your parents? He said yes. And from that point we went back up into the office.
After the confession, Oziel says he talked Erik into letting him call Lyle and asking him to come to the office, which was about a 10-minute drive for him.
He didn't want Erik to tell Lyle that he had told him outside of his presence, that he wanted Lyle to be there when he found out.
Over the phone, Oziel told Lyle that he had Erik in his office.
And that my brother had told him everything. I believe I asked him what he meant by that, and said he didn't want to talk about it on the phone, I should come over.
Oziel told Judalon, who was still in the waiting room, that his suspicions were right and Erik had just confessed. For his safety, Smyth says Oziel asked her to listen in on the conversation in his office, so she could call the police if things were to get out of hand. In the waiting room, she said she made small talk with Lyle for a few moments, before Oziel called him into the office, where Erik would tell him about the confession. In her original statement to police, Smyth reported hearing a raging Lyle tell Oziel that he would kill him if he ever shared what his brother had just told him.
He was extremely upset, threatening, menacing.
Lyle admitted to yelling at Erik, but was upset that his brother hadn't told him that his depression had gotten so bad.
When I expressed that I felt like my brother had in some way trusted Dr. Oziel more than me, and why did he go to Dr. Oziel and not me first?
After listening in for a while, Smyth says she went back out to the lobby, where she saw Erik come running out of the office, crying a couple minutes later, followed by his brother and Oziel. While waiting for the elevator, Smyth says she saw Lyle shake Oziel's hand and say, "Good luck, Dr. Oziel."
Which I took, again, to be menacing and threatening.
Oziel asked Lyle if that was a threat, getting onto the elevator with him after he didn't answer. Lyle says he was just trying to get away from the therapist to go check on his brother. He said he had never tried to intimidate Oziel, who made it clear that he would go to police if he felt threatened.
He didn't threaten Dr. Oziel, he just was pretty nervous in the session. He was angry and he was nervous and he just didn't want to be there.
After the session, Oziel called his wife and told her to leave their house with their children before he spent the night at Smyth's home. The day after the confession, Smyth says Oziel warned her not to tell anyone. After the Halloween session, their brothers met again with Oziel in his office on November 2nd, where the therapist again said he felt threatened. During the meeting, Oziel told Erik and Lyle that he had taped himself, going over his notes from the previous session, explaining that the recordings would be handed over to the police if anything bad happened to him.
Because I felt in the prior session that there was a strong threat to my life.
After hearing the news, Oziel says Lyle laughed.
And he said that I should have felt threatened.
Telling him about a conversation he had with Erik outside of the office that day. The therapist claims that Lyle explained that he asked Erik,
"Now how do we kill Oziel?"
with his brother responding that he didn't want to take anyone else's life.
And that if Lyle wanted to kill me, that Lyle should go ahead and kill me.
Oziel said Lyle asked him if he was scared.
And I said that I really didn't choose to live in fear.
After hearing the answer, Oziel claimed Lyle looked at him and said,
"Neither did my father,"
leaving him feeling threatened. Ultimately, Oziel says Lyle realized it'd be a bad look for him if something happened to the therapist.
It might begin to cast an unwelcome light on them.
Erik says his brother never threatened Oziel.
What I remember about it was that Dr. Oziel said something like, I pictured you guys sitting and talking in the Jeep or something like that.
At this point, Erik says he struggled to understand why the therapist would be scared, as he was the one who came to Oziel, confiding in him about his spiraling depression and the truth about the killings.
But the way he was talking about this Jeep thing and the fact that he had tapes and safety deposit boxes, I was thinking maybe he was. It made me want to calm him down. It made me want to agree with him and let him know that everything was fine.
Throughout the rest of the session, Oziel says he spoke with Erik and Lyle about their motive for the killings, noting that the brothers seemed to be fueled by a desire to be free from their parents and not collecting their inheritance.
That the father had just been completely dominating, controlling, was impossible to please, very damaging to their mother, and that she also was miserable.
Smyth was in the waiting room again, where she says she heard bits and pieces of the conversation. On November 28th, Erik met with Oziel alone at his office, talking about his own depression and the impact that his confession had been having on Lyle, saying that he was acting very jumpy. The brothers met again with Oziel in his office on December 11th, where he recorded the session with their permission, having convinced them that the tape would show their remorse for the killings if they ever got caught. During the session, the brothers talked more about their relationships with their parents and the pressures they had felt growing up. They told Oziel they loved their parents, but found José to be too demanding, and Kitty was too lost in her own depression to be able to live without him.
First of all, there's no way, never, could she live without my father. That was something that we had to really, it was a big thing holding us back from killing my father, is that we thought that we would just kill Dad and eliminate the father.
The tape captured the brothers explaining that they had killed their mother to put her out of her misery.
Sort of feel like, you mentioned before, that we were doing her and us a favor in putting her out of her misery, really.
And that their father had to die because it had been his infidelity that was torturing her.
He was somebody that I loved, and almost had no choice to do what I did.
After moving to California, the brothers say Kitty had an emotional breakdown, unhappy about leaving her dream home in Princeton, and struggling to cope with an affair that José had been having for the past 8 years in New York, where he often took trips for work.
She was explaining to me what the situation was and how it hurt her. And the one thing she said to me, and I'll never forget it, she said, the most difficult thing for me, Brian, is that I've lost my hero.
The brothers say their mother turned to alcohol and other substances to help numb her pain. As the affair continued, Oziel says the brothers told him that their mother had threatened to take her life in the past, and that they didn't think that she'd be able to handle José's death if they had just targeted him.
They didn't believe that the mother could have survived emotionally anyway and would have reported them.
Kitty's therapist would later confirm that she had talked about ending it all because of the affair, and that she'd become dependent on medication and alcohol. About a month before the killings, Kitty visited her therapist, with the notes revealing that she was hiding a sick and embarrassing secret.
I don't think she was depressed in Beverly Hills.
Kitty's brother, Brian Anderson, says Kitty was stressed out by the brothers' behavior, having to move from Calabasas after the thefts, and struggling to control Lyle's spending.
Lyle was stressing her a lot. And the thing with Calabasas just about broke her emotional back when she realized how far her son would go to basically have whatever he wanted.
Oziel never came forward to the police about the confession.
I and any therapist carries with him or with her at all times hundreds or thousands of people's secrets.
But it wouldn't stay buried for very long.
With the investigation nearing 7 months in duration, the Beverly Hills Police Department finally received a break in the case.
On March 5th, 1990, Smyth, who had broken up with Oziel, came forward to police, telling them about Erik's confession. She also provided key details, like where the brothers had bought the shotguns, and that Oziel had a tape of their confession. After confirming the details Smyth gave them, police were ready to arrest the brothers, who were both out of town at the time. Detectives flew to the East Coast, where they realized that Lyle had already left and gone back home after learning that police had been talking to his family back east. Glenn says Lyle pulled him aside, asking him to call his lawyer if he gets arrested, adding that
Dr. Oziel had some cassette tapes in a safety deposit box, and that if the police ever got their hands on those tapes, he would be fucked.
On March 8th, police heard a search warrant at Oziel's home trying to find the tapes, which were later uncovered in a safety deposit box at a local bank. That same day, police stopped Lyle as he was leaving the family home in Erik's Jeep, arresting him 7 months after the crime.
Not many Hollywood murder mysteries ever took a more dramatic turn than police are describing in a couple of savage Beverly Hills killings.
Details of Lyle's arrest quickly hit the news. Getting back to Erik, who was out of the country in Israel, where he was playing in a tennis tournament, he made a trip back to the East Coast, where he stopped to talk with family before he flew to LA, having arranged to hand himself over to police.
I didn't want to fight extradition. I wanted to be back with my brother.
Detectives waited for Erik at LAX, where they arrested him just after 1 a.m. on March 11th, after his flight landed. The brothers were held without bail, in separate cells at the Los Angeles jail, as they awaited their trial. The judge ordered a joint trial, but with 2 separate juries. This would allow all of the evidence to be presented at once, but still gave the brothers a chance at separate outcomes. While in jail, many of the brothers' family members and friends stood by them.
You believe strongly in the boy's innocence?
Extremely. You cannot imagine how strongly I believe in that.
Charging the kids is the most outrageous thing ever.
With some believing that they had been framed by the mafia.
This is too much money.
Before the trial could begin, the defense objected to the judge's ruling, allowing Oziel's tapes to be played in court.
We are going to vigorously defend his right to have a confidential communication with his therapist.
Prosecutors argued that the tape should be admissible, since Lyle had threatened Oziel, forfeiting his doctor-patient privilege. Ultimately, the Supreme Court of California ruled that most of the tapes could be used as evidence.
The defense was hoping that in suppressing the tape, they could also convince the judge that Dr. Oziel should not testify. And the judge made it clear throughout the hearings that that was not going to happen.
We always assumed that Dr. Oziel would be part of the case. That's what litigation is for. Some you win, some you lose.
In December 1992, a grand jury officially charged the brothers in the deaths of their parents with the special circumstance of lying in wait, meaning they had hidden and waited for the moment to attack.
Special circumstances for which you could be sentenced to death.
In July 1993, the 17-week televised trial began in the Van Nuys courthouse.
I'll now turn to the lawyers.
Joe Lansing represented Lyle, while Leslie Abramson led Erik's defense team.
She's regarded in Los Angeles and around the country as one of the best defense attorneys in the business.
Replacing Robert Shapiro, who would go on to join the O.J. Simpson case.
We're not disputing how it happened, who did it. The only thing that you are going to have to focus on in this trial is why it happened.
With the defense already admitting to the killings, the brothers claim that they were driven to the act by years of abuse at the hands of their parents.
He killed his parents because he could no longer endure their abuse and had to stop it.
They argued the brothers acted in imperfect self-defense, believing they were in danger due to extreme emotional distress, helping to reduce the charges from murder to manslaughter.
We were not saying
that because these parents were nightmare parents, that they deserve to die or that that's an excuse to kill them. We're saying if you terrify people, they may act out of terror.
The defense painted José as a controlling father who preyed on his sons from a young age.
José Menendez's obvious purpose was to use his child's body to satisfy his lust.
And Kitty as an unstable alcoholic who failed to protect them.
I told her to tell Dad to leave me alone, and he keeps touching me. She told me to stop it, and that I was exaggerating, and that my dad has to punish me when I do things wrong.
Lyle testified that his father started coming into his room at night when he was just 6 years old.
Just started with, after sports practices, he would massage me.
At some point, did he do some other things to you?
He raped me.
But stopped by the time that he had turned 8. The brother's cousin, Diane Vandermolen, testified that Lyle had told her about the abuse back in the 70s.
He proceeded to indicate to me by touching himself down and saying that his dad and him had been touching each other down there.
Diane told the jury that when she asked Kitty about Lyle's claims, she accused him of making the whole story up and forced him to leave the room.
And took him back upstairs.
Lyle told the court that Diane was the only person he had ever told about the abuse, as his father had told him to never talk about it.
He just said that it was our secret, that bad things would happen to me if I told anybody.
Erik said he had similar encounters with his father, which were still happening at the time of the killings. Erik explained that the abuse began with massages when he was just 6 years old.
He would say that the stress built up because of sports, that I would need to do this to relax.
Escalating into violent assaults by the time he was 12, which was just after his father had asked him to pick a sport to focus on. He says his father became more aggressive with him.
Later on, I figured that maybe he really wanted me to choose swimming, and since that was his sport when he was growing up, and he was just doing this to get back at me.
When he was 13, Lyle says he became suspicious of what José was doing while alone with Erik. Lyle says he confronted his father, telling him to leave Erik alone.
He told me that Erik made things up sometimes, but that it would stop, and that we should keep it just between us, or he'd kill me. And I told him I would never tell anybody. I just wanted to stop.
When Erik was 13, he said he told his cousin, Andy Cano, about what his father had been doing to him.
Because I was trying to understand, I was really beginning to really question what was happening between my dad and I never questioned it before.
Erik says Andy was the only person he ever confided in, as José had threatened to kill him if he ever told anyone.
He told me that silence was the greatest thing that man had, and that with silence you could control anyone.
Around this time, Erik says he tried to run away from home, packing up a lunchbox and a bag full of clothes.
We went across the lake in a canoe.
Into a wooded area on the other side. He spent the afternoon away from home, but says he got scared in the forest after the sun went down.
It was a real heavy, dense forest, and you could get lost, and I did.
When he heard his father calling out to him from the darkness, Erik yelled back, leading José to the tree he was sitting by. When José found him, Erik says he grabbed him, pushed him up against the tree, and said,
"If you ever run away, I'll kill you. Do you understand me? You'll never get away."
Erik told the jury that he believed his father's words that day, and that José would find him if he ever tried to leave, or use his influence to make the case go away, if he ever went to the police. In the days leading up to the crime, Erik told jurors he believed it was only a matter of time before his parents tried to kill him and his brother.
Certain incidents happened right before the parents died, which led these children to believe that they were about to be killed.
He said the week started with his father telling him that even though he had been accepted into UCLA and would be moving into a dorm, he would still be required to spend several nights at home, where the abuse would continue.
My entire dream had been to go to college and to leave home. This was going to continue throughout college, and I felt like I was crumbling.
2 days later, Erik said he saw a fight break out between his mother and Lyle, ending with Kitty ripping off his toupee. Lyle told the court he felt embarrassed, as his brother didn't know he wore a hairpiece.
You know, being there in the house without it and her having ripped it off was just unbelievably embarrassing.
As Kitty started leaving the room, Lyle says she turned around
And threw it at me and said, "You don't need your fucking hairpiece."
Lyle says he left the room, too embarrassed to talk to Erik about what had just happened.
You know, my brother and I, there are things we don't talk about, and that was one of them.
After putting his hairpiece back on in the bathroom, Lyle says he came out to find Erik, who asked if they could talk.
I knew he was very embarrassed, and I wanted to tell him that there wasn't a reason to be.
Lyle says Erik began to break down as he explained
That my dad had been molesting me.
over the course of the past 12 years.
He asked me if Mom knew. I told him, of course, Mom didn't know.
Lyle says Erik explained that he had been too afraid to come forward in the past.
One of the reasons he had never told me before was because my dad had always threatened his life and essentially used me against him, saying that if he ever told me, he would kill me and that Erik would be responsible for my death.
Erik says Lyle promised to confront José 2 nights later after he got home from a business trip. On Wednesday night, Lyle says he told his mother about what José had been doing to Erik, but she started to yell at him.
And she just exploded. All I remember is she saying that Erik's lying and coming toward me and saying if I was going to have to deal with my dad.
On Thursday night, as José walked through the front door, Lyle says he told his father they needed to talk right away, later explaining while they were alone in the study that he knew what was happening with Erik and that it needed to stop.
He said, "You listen to me. What I do with my son is none of your business. I warn you, don't throw your life away. Just stay out of it."
Lyle says he then threatened José, telling him he would tell other family members or call the police about what had been going on.
And he said, "We all make choices in life, son. Erik made his, and you've made yours." And then he just looked at me and he got up to leave.
That night, Erik says José burst into his room and screamed at him for telling Lyle.
He was saying that he had told me never to tell Lyle, and now Lyle was going to tell everyone, and he was not going to let that happen. I started saying, no, he's not going to tell anyone, I promise, and he just told me to shut up and just rushed toward me.
After getting away from his father, Erik says he ran downstairs, where he found his mother sitting in the den. Erik says he was crying, as Kitty asked what was the matter with him.
I said, no, nothing, you won't understand. And she said something like, oh, I understand a lot more than you think.
Erik said his mother then admitted to him that she had always known about the abuse.
Well, she said, oh, I know. I've always known. You think I'm stupid?
Leaving him devastated that she had never tried to stop it.
And it was like I didn't even know who she was anymore. And I just saw Dad and Mom as the same person at that point.
From that point, both brothers say they believe their parents planned to kill them in order to keep their family's secret hidden. The brothers say they stayed awake through the night, trying to figure out whether they should go to the police, talk to their other family members, or to buy weapons for self-defense. The next day, the brothers bought their shotguns in San Diego. Around 4 p.m. on August 19th, the family went on a shark fishing trip, getting home at 12 a.m. on Sunday. Erik testified that he and Lyle thought the trip was a setup and that their parents were actually planning to kill them. The brothers stayed at the front of the boat, away from their parents during the trip. After getting home from the trip, Erik says he drove with Lyle to UCLA, where the two speculated about their parents' true intentions.
What had happened on the fishing trip and what was going on and how strange they were acting, and we just talked about how it was really weird what was going on. It was really eerie.
The brothers say that they thought their parents would be more likely to attack them while they were together,
and that I should stay away from the house the next day, and that Lyle should stay home and see if he can talk to them.
On August 20th, Erik said he went out to the guest house around noon to speak with Lyle, who was too afraid to go into the main house.
And I said, Lyle, I understand you don't want to go over there, and that I really didn't care how scary the situation was. He needed to find out what was going on.
Soon after, Erik says he left the house
so that Lyle could sort of try to gauge how they were feeling, whether they were really going to kill us or whether they were just angry or what sort of mood they were in.
Planning to be back by 8 p.m. so that he could regroup with Lyle. That afternoon, Lyle says he called Perry, wanting to get out of the house with his brother that night so they could get away from their parents. After getting back around 9 p.m., Erik went into the main house with Lyle, where they spoke with their mother just outside the den. When their brothers told Kitty they were leaving, they say that she told them they weren't allowed to leave the house, making them suspicious when she couldn't give them a reason why. The brothers say José then came out of the den, forbidding them from leaving, before telling Erik to go upstairs to his room.
And then he would be there in a minute.
At this point, the defense says Lyle told his father,
no, you're not going to touch Erik. You're not going to touch my little brother.
Asking his mother if she was just going to stand by and let it happen. To which she responded, you ruined our family. The brothers say José and Kitty went into the den, closing the doors behind them. Inside that room, the brothers say they believed that José and Kitty were conspiring to kill them. Lyle ran up to the top of the stairs, where he spoke with Erik. Erik said he was in a panic, as he told a pale and shaken Lyle,
I wasn't going to let Dad go in my room. I wasn't going to wait for him in my room. I couldn't let Dad do it to me that night.
Erik ran to his room, where he says he thought about locking the door.
Then I realized I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm not going to be able to confront him like that.
But instead he grabbed his shotgun out of the closet and ran outside to his car, where he loaded the gun with the buckshot. Lyle joined Erik and loaded his own gun before they entered the home together and carried out the shootings. After leaving the house to get rid of the evidence, both brothers say they began to break down as they started to come to terms. with what they had just done. After getting off the phone with Perry, Lyle says he decided to go home and call the police, as his brother had become too hysterical to go on. While waiting for the police to show up, their brothers say they decided not to tell anybody that they had been the one to pull the trigger.
And we felt that we would go to jail, obviously, and it was a selfish reason to just not want to have to go through that.
After getting Jose's life insurance payout, the brothers say they went shopping to try and numb their emotions, struggling to cope with what they had done to their parents.
Cars, watches, invested in businesses, the good life.
Well, it was the same life before or afterwards.
With more money.
With more money.
The brothers' aunt, Marta Cano, testified that she was aware of most of the brothers' purchases beforehand.
Now, I believe you've indicated that you approved much of the expenditures that Erik Menendez made during the period of time before his arrest. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Marta also told the court that her brother and Kitty were cruel and wrong, saying she saw them being verbally and physically abusive to their sons.
Okay, now opening statements by the prosecution.
Thank you, Your Honor.
The lead prosecutor in Lyle's trial, Pamela Bazanich, told the jury that the crime wasn't self-defense, but had been meticulously planned out by the brothers, who were desperate to hold on to their parents' fortune, fearing that they were about to be disinherited for their spending habits and bad behavior.
And that it was accomplished through a conspiracy into which Lyle Menendez entered with his brother, and that but for a few mistakes they made, this was almost the perfect murder.
She drew the jury's attention to all of the planning the brothers had done before the crime, like buying the shotguns and making sure to get stronger ammunition. The prosecution claimed that the brothers had called Perry the afternoon of the crime, knowing that they were going to use him to try to create an alibi for themselves. After throwing away their movie tickets and getting to the festival as it winded down, prosecutors say the brothers tried to get Perry to come home with them so he could be there as they pretended to find their parents' bodies. She pointed out that Oziel's tapes caught the brothers talking about how they had planned the crime beforehand.
There was no way I was going to make a decision to kill my mother without Erik's consent. I didn't even want to influence him in that issue. I just let him sleep on it in a couple days because I'm in a very good position to influence Erik on a lot of things.
She also highlighted that Kitty was crawling away when Lyle reloaded and fired the final shot, later telling police,
My mother was on the floor, like she was trying to get away or something.
Lester Kuriyama, the lead prosecutor in Erik's case, told the jury what the youngest Menendez son said were his father's final words.
His father cried out, "No, no, no." The brothers then began to blast away.
Kuriyama told jurors that the abuse claims were made up by the defense 7 months before the trial to try and justify the crime.
I have got to think that it was their attorney's ideas that if your only way you're going to save your ass is to say that you were molested.
Throughout the proceedings, prosecutors told the jury that the brothers were skilled liars, pointing to Lyle's 911 call, where he cried and pretended not to know who killed his parents.
Look at what Lyle Menendez has tried to sell you as a defense. Look at the lies that he has told you on the witness stand and ask yourself, can you believe anything that this man says?
While on the stand, Lyle admitted that he had tried to bribe Jamie, who is now his ex-fiancée, into lying for him in court. He asked her to claim José had made sexual advances toward her.
That there was going to be a large sum of money placed in my bank account.
But she told Lyle no, and that she would go to the police if he tried to give her money. The defense doubled down on their side of the story, presenting 2 photos of the brothers naked from the waist down, claiming José had taken them out of his own perversion.
If we were in the showers or bathtub or changing, he would just use the same camera that my mother used, and then he would come in and take just a photograph or two, and he wouldn't say anything, and then he would leave.
Prosecutors countered the claim, noting there was no proof José took the photos, which were found alongside innocent birthday party pictures on the same film strip.
This is not a child abuse trial, this is a murder trial, and we are not in a position to dispute or admit the child molestation.
As arguments over abuse continued, the brothers' sessions with Oziel took center stage in the courtroom. Before prosecutors could, the defense played the 61-minute recording of the brothers' session with Oziel on December 11th, capturing them explaining that they had killed their father because his infidelity was torturing the family, and that they had killed their mother to put her out of her misery. Oziel testified that he believed the brothers wanted freedom from their parents and not money, arguing that as adults, they felt trapped and submissive after years of manipulation. He would also explain that Erik said he first came up with the idea while watching a movie or a TV show on the BBC about a person who killed their father. While watching the program, Oziel said Erik called Lyle into the room, and they began talking about how they could carry out the same crime. During the trial, Oziel came under fire, with the defense labeling him as manipulative and controlling, claiming he had guided the brothers' statements on the tapes.
The defendants told Dr. Oziel that they killed their father because he controlled them and made them feel inferior.
I mean, isn't that really after all, isn't that what it was about, Tony? I mean, wasn't it about the amount of absolute control and the ruthlessness in terms of just completely, almost being like an automaton? Do you think your father had any sense of what he even was doing to you? Or do you think that your father basically was so much on automatic pilot in terms of being focused on control and domination that did he not care? Well, when you ended up killing your mom, did you feel like you were sparing her? I mean, I know she was horribly depressed, and she was totally dominated by your dad. She was like a shell of the person. She had no identity or strength left anymore. That's where we sort of feel like, you mentioned before, that we were doing her and us a favor in putting her out of her misery, really.
Judalon Smyth, who was the person who came forward to police, testified for the defense, saying that Oziel had manipulated her in her first statement to police, the same way he had controlled her during their relationship. Smyth walked back her claims of hearing Lyle threaten Oziel, saying that the therapist had later told her what had happened inside of the office.
He yelled and he said he didn't have a brother anymore. He could kill him. Look at all the trouble he caused, and now we have to kill Oziel and everybody connected to Oziel and everybody that knew him. Now, was that answer incorrect?
Part of it was what I heard, and the other part is what Jerry Oziel then said was the rest of it.
Using a tape recorder she had hidden on herself, Judalon recorded a conversation she had with Oziel after he had learned she went to police, capturing the therapist telling her that she didn't know all the details.
They feared for your life, that they were going to come into the office and kill you.
Judalon, they might have. Here, you were there.
I know, and so unfortunately now I know because I overheard stuff and I saw them and I know, and you told me word for word everything that happened in those sessions.
You don't know a lot of things that happened, and a lot of what was told you wasn't even accurate.
Jerry, you were not lying. You gave the session word for word.
During her testimony, Smyth told the court that she'd been brainwashed by Oziel.
Are you aware of the fact that you told Diane Sawyer the following things? I heard from their own mouths that they killed their parents. So now you're saying that you no longer believe that you heard that, correct?
I was brainwashed.
You were brainwashed?
Sharing a tape of a conversation where she said he tried to hypnotize her, using the word thorns as a trigger.
Jerry, you got here because you scared me.
I got here? You want me to leave?
No, I want you to tell me the truth.
I will tell you the truth.
Okay.
Thorn? These your thorns? Are these your thorns?
Okay, yes.
Are they?
Yes.
Why are you doing this?
Why am I doing what?
You should talk to your mom. Come on, tell her to behave.
Oziel told Smyth that she didn't know what she was talking about before saying,
There was $14 million involved in this. So, figure it out.
I don't know what that means.
Well, figure it out.
What does that mean?
It means nothing.
During the sessions, their brothers say Oziel seemed more interested in the $14 million they were set to inherit, telling them he could help them invest it, and that he had lost money in the days after the confession because he was too scared to go to work.
I think the defense wants this to be the Jerome Oziel trial because I think they want to set up a diversion so that we all forget that this is a murder trial and think that it's a really cheap version of divorce court.
As the defense worked to undercut Oziel's credibility in court, the prosecution took aim at Smyth, painting her as a bitter ex-girlfriend who was just trying to get back at the therapist after their breakup.
Would it be fair to say that when you went to the police on March the 5th of 1990, your primary motivation is that you wanted Dr. Oziel prosecuted?
Correct. He was the one who committed crimes against me, not Lyle or Erik Menendez.
In 1990, Smyth filed a lawsuit against Oziel, saying that he had kidnapped, assaulted, and medicated her. The case was later settled, with Oziel denying the claim. Lyle says he came out to find Erik.
I take it that one of your motivations for testifying is that you would like to discredit Dr. Oziel further. Is that correct?
I did not have any motivation in testifying. I did not want to be here. I made a specific request not to be here.
The intense back and forth between the defense, the prosecution, and even witnesses.
You want to help the defendants in this case, don't you?
Not necessarily. I have my own personal integrity, and remember, I'm talking against my brother here. I'm not talking against a stranger.
Unfolded live on television screens across America.
This case has been treated like a soap opera by you all for a long time, and it isn't a soap opera. This is real life.
The testimony in the courtroom captivated the nation, drawing over 1 million viewers to the trial's televised coverage. After closing arguments, the jury was sent off to begin deliberating, given 4 options: first-degree or second-degree murder, involuntary or involuntary manslaughter. After 16 days, the jury told the judge that it was having trouble reaching a verdict.
What does it say when the deliberations have gone on so many days that you're saying you still have a chance?
They're still deliberating, aren't they?
Both juries would later reveal that they were divided over whether or not the brothers had been telling the truth about their parents.
The defense had like 5 expert witnesses and gave us what amounted to a seminar on the psychology of abuse. And I think that it was a big mistake on the part of the prosecution to not have any counter-expert witnesses.
Or if they had really just killed for the money.
When you go out next day and buy Rolex watches, spending money on sports cars, it just didn't seem like they were grieving.
In January 1994, after a month of deliberations by both juries, the trial ended in a deadlock.
And the court declares a mistrial.
Los Angeles County District Attorney Gil Garcetti, the same DA who oversaw the O.J. Simpson trial, refiled charges against the Menendez brothers, saying he wouldn't offer their brothers a plea deal, as he believed the crime was premeditated.
They knew that they were about to be disowned. They were going to be disinherited. They decided they were going to do something about it to protect perhaps their own lifestyle and their future lifestyle.
This time, there would be no cameras allowed in the courtroom. The judge also ruled that the second trial would only be centered around the killings and not the brothers' past, strictly limiting the defense on what it could present about abuse. The lead prosecutors from the first trial, Kuriyama and Bazanich, were replaced by assistant district attorneys David Kahn and Carol Nahara. The retrial began more quietly than the first, but the stakes were just as high. Erik testified once again, but Lyle stayed off the stand.
There were things that had been developed since the first trial that would have damaged his credibility a great deal.
In the years after his arrest, Lyle began speaking with Norma Novelli, who had first written him a letter while he was in jail. Novelli recorded several of the conversations that she had over the phone with Lyle, planning to use the tapes to write a book about his life together. One of the tapes captured Lyle explaining that he no longer believed that his parents were going to kill him that night, like he testified in the first trial.
I wish that I could just go back and have waited, just wait another day or two, see what happens. I mean, I can't honestly say now that I felt that they were actually going to do something in that moment, because now I know that they didn't have any weapons with them. Not that I knew for sure how it was going to go down anyway.
Well, everyone knows now that you overreacted.
Well, I obviously overreacted at that moment. No doubt about it. I fucked up. But whether something was going to happen that night, I mean, I felt like it was pointing to that night. But I don't know. You know, obviously it wasn't pointing to that moment. And I'm not going to go into court and say that it was. You know, I mean, I told my attorneys, I said, listen, I don't fucking believe now that they were going to kill me at that moment, and I'm not going to go in there and say I believe that now, because I just don't.
Novelli would hand the tape over to prosecutors, who used it to undercut Lyle's credibility in court. His ex-fiancée, Jamie, testified about how he had offered her money to lie about his father ahead of the first trial. Another friend of Lyle's testified that he had also been asked to make up a story that would back up his claims about Jose. Charles Gessler, who was now representing Lyle, told the court that the eldest Menendez son had acted out of the mistaken belief that his parents were going to kill him. Erik's defense attorney maintained that fear, not greed, is what drove the brothers to kill, calling the crime a highly emotional overkill. Erik testified for 15 days, sharing only a few of the same details about his traumatic upbringing that he did in the first trial.
What was taking place in the courtroom today was a clear effort on the part of the prosecution to prevent this jury from hearing the truth of Erik's life. Constant objection.
As Erik testified, Kahn tried to limit his displays of emotion, often objecting when the youngest Menendez brother would cry on the stand.
I don't think that the judge has to allow a witness to cry as much as he wants to while everyone just sits in the courtroom waiting for him to stop.
Kahn addressed the brother's side of the story.
There is no medical evidence whatsoever to corroborate the claim of the defendants. There are no eyewitnesses. So how can they really say that the defendants are telling the truth concerning the allegations?
Instead of trying to ignore it, like the previous prosecutors had done.
We have now seen the defense take their best shot. We know exactly where they're going. There are no more surprises.
Kahn asked why the brothers, who were both over the age of 18, hadn't just left the home, arguing that Erik could have signed up for the army, where he'd be free and safe from his father. The defense countered with psychologists, who said Erik displayed symptoms of PTSD, but the team wasn't allowed to say much more due to the court's ruling limiting the testimony about abuse.
The judge just whittles away at our defense, makes it smaller and smaller and smaller, and this jury doesn't have as much information as the last jury's had.
The prosecution fired back with their own expert, who argued that Erik's actions, including a visit to the gun range before the crime, didn't line up with someone who felt helpless or terrified. During his closing arguments, Kahn called the brothers' testimony of abuse the silliest, most ridiculous story ever told in a courtroom. He told the jury that the brothers had put their parents on trial as a way to justify their deaths. In her own closing arguments, Abramson accused Kahn of trying to win the case for political reasons.
Such an obvious ploy that they're trying to dehumanize, these brothers in order to desperately get a conviction.
As the district attorney's office had just lost the high-profile O.J. Simpson case,
we, the jury, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder.
In the days before the brothers' second trial began,
We are, all of us, profoundly disappointed with the verdict.
after 6 months of testimony and nearly 7 years after the killings, the jury finally reached its verdict in March 1996.
Was guilty on all counts with special circumstances.
Lyle and Erik were convicted of first-degree murder with the special circumstance of lying in wait.
We did think there was psychological abuse to some extent. Sexual abuse, I don't think we will ever know if that's true or not.
6.5 years after that bloody night here at the Menendez family home, the jury now takes up the question of whether Erik and Lyle should be executed.
Both brothers avoided the death penalty and were instead sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. They appealed their convictions all the way to the California Supreme Court. But in 1998, the court refused to hear the case. With nowhere else to turn in state court, they filed federal habeas corpus petitions, arguing for a new trial, but were ultimately denied.
What we did is awful. We will spend the rest of our life in prison. If we're not put in the same prison, there's a good probability I will never see him again. With everything taken away, it'll be the last, it's the last thing you can take.
They were sent to separate prisons in California, where they weren't allowed to talk on the phone, but could send each other letters. While in prison, Erik was cited for several violations, including fights with inmates, drinking alcohol, using contraband cell phones, and helping a gang run a tax fraud scheme. In 2013, Erik admitted that he helped the gang, saying that he saw a lining with them. As a way to protect himself in prison, Erik said that he had turned to drugs and alcohol to help numb his sadness while in prison. In 2013, Erik says he quit all substances, finding faith and a new purpose in life, to be a good person. In 2018, the brothers were reunited after Lyle was moved into the same prison where Erik was serving his time in San Diego.
And the first signatures was just quite an emotional moment.
The brothers hadn't seen each other since 1996.
It's marvelous that they are together, and it's marvelous that they are able to look at each other and love each other and remember that they have never forgotten each other.
Despite his record of violations, Erik has worked alongside Lyle to bring new programs into the prison, helping elderly and disabled inmates and leading conflict resolution workshops. In 2016, Lyle founded a program that helps inmates understand their childhood trauma, also creating a mentorship group that helps young people with rehabilitation. 2 years later, Lyle helped launch the Green Space Project, aiming to beautify prison yards, creating a more humane environment for inmates. Lyle worked to raise more than $250,000 for the project, recruiting Erik as the lead painter for a mural that they put together for their prison yard.
My joy would be that they would be set free, that they would be able to be human beings on a normal basis and not behind bars. They've been behind bars many, many years. I would love to see them free.
Many of the brothers' family members, including Jose's sisters, Marta Cano and Terry Baralt, hoped to see them released from prison one day, but after exhausting their appeals in court, that didn't seem like an option for Erik or Lyle. But in 2023, Roy Rossello, a former member of the band Menudo, came forward on national television, saying that when he was 14, José had drugged and sexually assaulted him at the Menendez home in New Jersey.
Y yo estuve una semana con un dolor terrible.
Soon after, Erik and Lyle's legal team, now led by Mark Garagos, a high-profile defense attorney, filed for a new hearing. The team also submitted a letter, which Erik says he wrote to his cousin, Andy Cano, in 1988, detailing how the abuse had been continuing.
I've been trying to avoid Dad. It's still happening, Andy, but it's worse for me now. Every night I stay up thinking he might come in. I'm afraid. He's crazy. He's warned me 100 times about telling anyone,
especially Lyle.
Andy's mother, Marta Cano, says the letter was found by a journalist who she invited into her home in 2018 after her son died of an accidental overdose. She said that Andy had struggled with seeing his cousins go to jail, overwhelmed with guilt that he had never told anybody what Erik had confessed to him. In September 2024, interest in the case skyrocketed.
We did it! We fucking did it!
With the release of Monsters, the Lyle and Erik Menendez story on Netflix, followed by a documentary called The Menendez Brothers in October. Users flooded TikTok with clips from the first trial, offering a fresh take on a case that was settled decades ago in court.
Were you scared?
Very.
As attention has returned to the case, the lead prosecutor in Lyle's first trial, Pamela Bazanich, has stood by his later conviction.
The law doesn't allow them to kill their father even if he was a child abuser. And it certainly doesn't allow them to kill their mother.
But the same office she prosecuted the case from has since changed course. Soon after the release of the documentary, Los Angeles County District Attorney George Gascon announced that his office was reviewing the new evidence.
It's being alleged by his lawyers, not by us, that there was evidence that had that evidence been presented to the jury, the outcome of this case would have been different.
Within weeks, he recommended resentencing for the brothers.
I believe that they have paid their debt to society.
Saying he didn't want to excuse the crime, but wanted to acknowledge the brothers' traumatic upbringing and decades of good behavior behind bars.
Do you think the Menendez brothers will walk free someday?
Given the totality of the circumstances, I don't think that they deserve to be in prison until they die.
Kitty's brothers, Brian and Milton, have stood firm against their brothers' release, saying they deserve the sentence that they were given all those decades ago.
What they did to my sister, they should have gotten a death penalty.
But 24 of the brothers' family members, including Kitty's sister, Joan Vandermolen, joined the calls for resentencing.
Their actions, while tragic, were the desperate response of two boys trying to survive the unspeakable cruel of their father.
With José's sister Terry explaining that the prison time has been a punishment for the entire family.
35 years is a long time. It's a whole branch of my family erased. The ones that are gone and the ones that are still paying for it, which were kids.
Ahead of the resentencing hearing, the brothers spoke with their cousin Diane, asking her to share a message with the world.
They are truly, deeply sorry for what they did, and they are profoundly remorseful.
In late October, Gascon called on California Governor Gavin Newsom, asking him for clemency for the brothers, reducing their sentences, or giving them pardons.
The Menendez file, which is now a little thicker because we did deeper research in the last 10 days, that's all on my desk.
By mid-November, Newsom announced that he was holding off on making a decision on clemency, saying that incoming Los Angeles County District Attorney Nathan Hochman, who had just beat Gascon in the election, should have a chance to review the case first.
I think is important under the circumstance, out of respect, not just to him, the new incoming DA, but those that elected him rather overwhelmingly in Los Angeles.
But in 2025, Hochman reversed course, filing a motion to oppose resentencing, calling the brothers' story self-serving lies.
At all points, they said that they killed as part of this self-defense defense, and that's a lie. So as a result, the Menendez brothers have not exhibited this full insight into their actions.
And questioning if the letter Erik wrote to his cousin was legit, he argued that if it was real, it would have been used during their original trial back in 1993.
If you decide this case based on just reviewing a Netflix documentary, you're doing a disservice to the Menendez brothers, to the victim family members, to the public.
Hochman questioned Gascon's motive for the recommendation, insinuating that he was trying to use the momentum from the documentary to win his upcoming bid for re-election.
I appreciate the fact that Mr. Hochman wants to evaluate it. That shouldn't delay anything because it's up to the judge. It's in the judge's hands now.
In May, a judge handed down new sentences for the brothers, making them both eligible for parole.
The Menendez brothers have done remarkable work, and today is a great day after 35 years.
The Menendez brothers have started down the path of fully accepting responsibility for all their actions. If and when they do come fully clean, I believe that the parole board should very well consider them as eligible for parole.
On August 21st, 2025, Erik went before the California Board of Parole, where he explained that he killed his father to stop him from coming into his room that night, the same way he had done so many times in the past.
That was going to happen, one way or another. If he was alive or then that was going to happen. And so I went and I ran and I got the gun in my room and I went down to the car and I loaded it and I ran into that den.
The board pushed back, telling Erik that killing his parents should never have been an option for him.
You do see that there were other choices at that point.
I get that, looking back as a healthy individual today, that there were obviously other choices. When I look back at the 18-year-old that I was, and I don't mean to minimize it by saying I was 18, just the person I was then, and what I believed about the world and my parents, running away was inconceivable. Running away meant death. That was never going to happen. It wouldn't matter where I was.
After an hours-long hearing, Erik was denied parole, with the board saying he still posed a risk to the public, citing his past violations in jail, including fights, helping a prison gang, and using cell phones. The next day, Lyle was also denied parole, with the board explaining that he still showed signs of being deceptive and had also been caught using cell phones in prison. Despite denying their parole, the board acknowledged the hard work the brothers had been doing behind bars and that they had genuine remorse for the killings. Both brothers can apply for parole again in 3 years, or potentially 18 months with good behavior. On September 16th, a judge reviewed the brothers' petition that they had submitted 2 years earlier, aiming to throw out their conviction and give them a third trial based on new evidence, including the letter Erik had written his cousin and Roy Rossello's side of the story. The judge ultimately denied the brothers' petition, saying the letter did nothing to prove the brothers' fear at the time of the crime, and neither did Rossello's testimony. Decades have now passed since that August night in Beverly Hills, yet the Menendez brothers' story refuses to fade. What began with 16 gunshots ended in a question that still divides the nation. Was this a cold-blooded execution or a desperate act of survival? Now reunited in prison, the brothers have continued to fight for their freedom, side by side, the same way they've always faced everything. For years, the media portrayed the brothers as spoiled brats who killed their parents for their money. But as time passed, the brothers' side of the story couldn't be ignored, gaining new attention with each generation that discovers their case. The question is no longer just about what happened inside of that mansion, but what should happen after 3 decades behind bars? Could the brothers who once killed their parents ever walk free, reshaped by their prison time? Or are some acts simply beyond redemption in the eyes of the law? Thanks for watching, and make sure to subscribe to The Vacant Mind.